Hi there, I'm Erica M. I'm the writer of the Out of the Books musical series, and today I'm moderating a conversation with the cast and crew of Out of the Books. We're going to chat about how we reimagine fairy tales for the streaming generation. And what you're going to find out very quickly is the show that we made is not the show we initially created. And not only did we reimagine fairy tales with music, but also we use technology in a new way to tell some old stories. First of all, let me introduce you to the fearless executive producer and my co-collaborator. Not only did Brian Banks initially come up with reimagining fairy tales for a new generation, he also wrote and produced most of the songs. He guided the show's storyline and characters with me, and then oversaw the huge job of shooting and producing this unique, kind of crazy production. Brian, congratulations for actually getting this show done. Where did you get the idea for Out of the Books?
I've been writing music for advertising for about 30 years, and for about 20 of those years, I had a client, and all she did was music for toys. And so I got the idea really from the old Danny Kaye musical, Hans Christian Andersen, about the possibility of trying to sing a song, and if I could tell a whole story. So I picked the poster child for all fairy tales, Cinderella, and that was the first one that I wrote as a sort of proof of concept. And it seemed to work. People seemed to like it. I played it for some friends and some friends with kids, and they liked it. And so I started writing a whole bunch of these. And then wanted to find a vehicle to get them out, because music by itself doesn't often cut it, especially with kids and families right now. Everyone wants video content or some sort of other entertainment. And I became aware of the Edinburgh Fringe. I mean, I knew about the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, but somehow it just sort of clicked to me that if I could get this in a musical theater format, that I could, get this out to a bunch of people in a month, because thousands of people hit the Edinburgh Fringe. And if I could put this together in a 1-hour musical, maybe we could put some of these songs in. Then, of course, there's the problem of writing that play, which is not something I do. I talked to a friend of mine, and she says, "Have I got a girl for you? She's the perfect person." So she said, "You got to call Erica and put this together with her, because she can write the script and glue all your songs together. And I'm sure you guys will hit it off personally, and I'm sure that you guys will come up with something great." I said, "Okay, fine." So I called Erica probably the next day, and I said, "Are you interested?" And you said you were interested. And of course, we went through all this process. I'll jump to the short story, which is we wrote this show. It was all set and ready to go to Edinburgh. COVID happened. Edinburgh was canceled. And then it was like, now what do we do? And Sarah said to me, "I bet you could do something online with this that would be fun and interesting." And so I kind of scratched my head about it. And I thought, yeah. So I called you and I said, "You down for this?" And the next day, "Yeah, we should do this." I was like, okay, this is a slam dunk. Let's just go do this.
So how do you find a cast of characters from around the world during a pandemic, get them to bring the characters to life, dress them, get them props, and how the hell do you shoot a show during a pandemic virtually?
Well, we were just at the point of starting to cast this thing for Edinburgh when this whole thing went down. And I was working with our director, Neil Fisher, who is sadly not able to be with us at this Zoom conversation today. But basically, I went back to Neil. I said, "Well, who do you think?" He said, "Well, I have a few ideas for casting. There's this guy, Carl Spencer, that I know is a really good actor. I think he might be available. He had a part in Hamilton, and of course, that show's closed now. So I'm figuring there's this guy, Carl Spencer, who's probably in the chorus." So I called Carl Spencer and I gave him a synopsis of the show. "Are you interested?" He said, yeah. I said, "And listen, I'm looking for some more guys. I mean, I think Ryan had already been contacted by the director, and I know that Annie had been contacted by Neil." I said to Carl, "Do you have any buddies? I need another guy." He goes, "Yeah, I got another friend. Here's his number." And he said, "I'll call him and let him know that you're calling." And it was other Carl. It was Carl Queensborough. So I called him. And he goes, "Yeah, I'd love to do it. Sounds great." Meanwhile, airbrain that I am, I'm not realizing I'm talking to the star of Hamilton and another absolutely crucial lead character who not only has a leading role in the show, but the difficulty of playing two parts in a show and having to be two whole people in a show. I had no idea. So I just went out and, yeah, you want to do it? Yeah, sure, let's do the show. Okay, great. I only found out afterward who I was talking to. So it sort of spiraled, and I talked to Electra, my daughter, and she turned me on to Kirsten. And I've known Charlie since she was a child, because she and Charlotte were both at school together. And Jonty was at school with them. And Rayon had done some work with me on some of the demos. And so all of a sudden, I had cast.
So let's chat with some of the cast and find out from the cast how they brought their characters to life with this really crazy setup that everybody had to use. So let's start off at the beginning and let's meet Annie. Annie played the role of the librarian who had an awful lot of on-camera time to do this show. So first of all, Annie, tell me a little bit about the character of the librarian.
So the librarian is kind of the narrator and the overseer of the whole show. And she's a cat as well. That's quite crucial. She was a joy to play. And I remember when Neil approached me and gave me the script, and we were kind of playing around with ideas and had a few sessions. And I was like, there's something that I'm not quite getting. And I remember one night I sent him about 10 voice notes of different accents saying, should I do it in a Welsh accent? Should I do it in a Scottish accent? Should I do it and then did an Irish accent? And he was like, wait, hang on a minute. And yeah, she's got this kind of soft quality, which is really important for kids as well. You don't want to scare them off with, the person that is sat there talking at them, but also quite firm character that was really fun to play.
Mr. Warble, you have sufficiently terrified us with your performance. Please make your way to the oversized exit on your left. I don't want to be catty, but I think we've had enough of that one.
I think one of my favorite things about your performance was the tale. You discovered a magical tale and used it a lot. How did that come about?
So when we were rehearsing, I think Neil said straight away, can you try something as a tale? Because you can have this tale and obviously it doesn't move. So you need to make it, you need to maneuver it. And it was really important for me to try and be a cat. I had to kind of create this cat that wasn't full, we only had the top half of our bodies, and I had the makeup, and I wanted to try and get some kind of physicality in there to make sure it wasn't obviously just a woman with a cat face on. So yeah, the tale was good for that.
Well, you did a great job, and you really are sort of the anchor to the whole story. Next, I want to introduce Carl, who played Major C. Carl, tell me a little bit about Major Canis.
Yeah, so C Major, he's he's a wolf, very friendly. And I think his kind of sole purpose in life is to kind of prove that not all wolves are bad. Because, you've got these fairy tales where it's the big bad wolf that kind of eats Little Red Riding Hood's grandma. So he's kind of, he feels like his life has been tainted by those kind of fairy tales. And he has to kind of prove that all of his relatives, his grandfathers and his uncles are not bad. They're all really good. I think initially when I first read for the part, I had a sort of an RP kind of posh voice in my head. And I remember when Brian sent me kind of like updated sketches of C Major, that kind of changed our perspective. And we had like a discussion to kind of maybe make the voice, make him as a character a bit younger as well, and kind of change the accent. So I kind of went for like a kind of a Cockney kind of aspect. But yeah, he was a lot of fun. He was a lot of fun to play, very colorful, very cheerful as well. And I felt like because he was a wolf, I wanted to kind of add some personal stuff. So I kind of decided to put whiskers and, stuff on my nose to kind of add to the character.
Well, for you, it must have been a huge change going from the West End and starring in Hamilton to being the entire cast, crew, makeup person, audio, lighting, etc. What was that process like for you?
Yeah, I'm sure same with everyone else. I've never really done anything like that before. And green screen, that's the first time I've had any experience with that. The payoff was really great. Saw everyone's episodes, really happy with it. And it's incredible. You're just in this, you're in a room and you've got this green screen and then suddenly everything's kind of transformed. So like props to like the editing and the sound and everything kind of, everyone kind of coming together as a team and putting this together. Considering the kind of climate that we've been living in is like, it's really impressive.
On a morning of a lovely sunny day, a hare was bragging in his boastful way. He said, I'm so fast that I can't be beat. I'm unsurpassed, I got super feet. No one here could ever challenge me. Wait there, said the tortoise poking through. You're all talk, but you haven't got a clue.
I'm going to head over to our Wicked Witch, I guess. We not in real life. Electra is far from wicked, but she played the role of Trixie. Tell me a little bit about the character of Trixie.
Trixie's kind of a funny one because she's a witch, so she has a lot of stereotypes placed on her. And I think she lives up to a lot of those stereotypes. She loves to, I guess, prank people and be a little bit wicked, comes with the territory. But I think she's new and different because she likes to use her powers to help people. She doesn't let anyone know that, of course, but she does it secretly, which I think is kind of fun.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I and Brian were writing this character, we wanted to do sort of, again, reimagine the concept of what a witch would be. So she's not a good witch. She's not a bad witch. She's kind of in between, kind of like Breaking Bad. You know, the character, you just never know who she really is. And you really captured that. And to me, what was also unexpected were your nails. I feel like your nails played such an important part in developing the character.
Yeah, they were the best because, I don't know, I think we just didn't want to, because she's so different in theory, we didn't want to do like a wand. She has a broomstick, but it's kind of a difficult prop to use on screen because all of our props were made of paper, which I'm sure we'll go into. But it wasn't like a super usable prop in a normal sense. So yeah, our wicked nails, I'm sure that was Charlotte's idea. I just had these like press-on nails and they added to the Southern experience as well, just having these like really flamboyant and expressive nails, and because they're so spiky they were pretty wicked at the same time. So yeah, that was a really good idea from our creative team.
One bad apple, it only takes one bite. This bad apple will be the end of Snow White.
So I'm going to move over to Carl and your character of Pollywig. Tell me a little bit about who Pollywig, Prince Pollywig, was when you read the script and how you brought him to life.
So Prince Pollywig, the princeliest prince in all the land. He's a prince who might not necessarily want to take part in his princely duties. He'd rather be more involved in fashion and shopping. And I don't know, for me, when I kind of read the character description, I got a lot of inspiration from Little Richard. So I decided to throw a little bit of his funk onto the character. And yeah, he came to life.
Tell me what it was like for you, once again, starring on the West End's Hamilton production and then going to this one-room sweat box. What was that process like for you as a performer to be working in kind of a vacuum to some degree?
It was very eye-opening. It showed me a lot of how much people do for shows to physically come to life, even down to recording the vocals for this, for Out the Books. I struggled to find a space where I could actually get my sound locked in. Tried singing in a cubby, made it worse. There was more of an echo, so I had to clear out my wardrobe, use coats to pad it out, use suitcase as a stand, and it made me appreciate so much of what goes on when we're just kind of going through lines. It made me appreciate so much more what people do to make shows happen.
One day 2 con men came to town, said they could weave a suit so beautiful the whole world would salute. And they said, Mr. Emperor, let us design your own
go to the main storyteller, Rayanne. You're kind of, in a way, a bit of a glue as well. You tell the story and keep the story moving. Tell me about your character.
Okay, so I'm the town crier. I was called in to do a demo way back when I did the demo for Major C. And I feel for the town crier, he's been telling stories and helping the librarian in the town for a while. And I feel like he was trying a new thing, so he started rapping his town cries, and that's how he started telling the stories in a new, engaging way for the villagers and the townspeople to get the competition started.
We were initially just going to have you as a town crier, just, spreading the news in the square. And then it was actually my son who came up with an idea to do it as a rap, because rap is spoken word. And we wanted to reimagine fairy tales for a new generation. And when I told Brian that idea, I thought, this guy, he's older. He's not going to know about rap. He whipped
let me
out.
see my cane.
He whipped out an amazing rap, which you perform so well, which is one of the hookiest songs in the whole show.
The rhythm is so catchy. Like, I was grooving to the song. As soon as he sent me the first demo, I was like, yeah.
And now you have this character who is an ongoing character in what we hope will become a series where you are the rapping storyteller, which we love, which is fantastic.
And now, to spread the good news.
Hear ye, by royal decree, librarian has gotta save our library. Now this is her ambition, to find the best musician and complete her mission with a song competition.
Now we're going to talk to Kirsten. Kirsten, Melody, the Blue Fairy. I remember the first time you opened up your mouth when we were doing our Zoom read, and there was such a gentle yet enthusiastic voice that came out of you. Tell me a little bit about who the Blue Fairy was or is.
So Melody is, I think, ultimately just a very kind character. She believes in seeing the good in people. She's had a bit of a tough time, I think, sort of growing up. She, as if you watch the series, you will know, she was bullied for being the wrong shade of blue, but she hasn't let that sort of get her down, and she's really able to turn that negativity into positivity. And of course, she's just got a very strong passion for singing and performing, and that's what you see on screen. It's just, she's just very, very passionate and loving. Yeah.
Tell me about what your experience was with the green screen and bringing this character to life.
For me, I had a lot of component parts to my costume. Charlotte did the most amazing job shipping these beautiful handmade wings over from LA. Another part was my makeup. I went down to Superdrug and bought every blue shade of makeup. The cashier looked at me like, "Are you sure this is what you want to be wearing out?" But that was a whole process, experimenting what kind of makeup to do. But I'd say apart from the heat, it was just a joyous process, the whole thing, from recording the songs and then actually shooting it all together. I've learned so much from it, and also learnt where the best lighting in my house is. So, just for future reference.
The magical women gave their powerful gifts, whilst number 13, who was sorely miffed, said, "In your 15th year, you'll prick your finger and perish." But there was one more gift. It was a spell they would cherish. You may not die, but instead you'll sleep for 100 years.
I wanted to come back to you, Erica, talking about how this hadn't really ever been done before. There were some challenges that you had in coming up with a script and a structure. You had to come up with a way of creating an overarching story that included all these other self-contained stories. And the songs came first. Very often you'll have a script, and if you do musical theater, you do a script and you say, okay, we could write a song that talks about when they're falling in love or when they're, falling in hate or, whatever the emotion happens to be. So what were the challenges that you found, and how did you come up with the solutions to glue all these self-contained stories together?
I actually don't know how I came up with it to some degree. I mean, the art of creation is kind of weird. It just kind of goes into your brain. But the idea was, how do you find some sort of an overarching idea that people would want to watch from beginning to end? And that these songs there would be a reason to have these songs being sung, well-known fairy tales being sung. How do you incorporate that? I used to love the show American Idol. And I thought, well, that could be fun. Some sort of a performance thing where each character would perform the song. That made sense. But why? And Brian, you and I worked together, and we ultimately came up with the idea of the crumbling library. Treasury of Tales is what we ultimately named it. I loved all the names for our shows. In fact, that was probably my favorite thing of everybody's names and how we named each of the characters. And the idea of, we believe that people would stay invested, because in the end, on the stage, that it would be the kids who would have some sort of a say as to who would win. But ultimately, they turn into it. You all turn into a band, and that would be the beginning of a whole new series. So we were thinking creatively. So just how do we extend the story past this one show with all these really cool characters that we dreamt up? I'd like to talk to Ryan now. Your character of T-Roll was one of my favorites. I pictured him as this guy who was a gymnast, that he was able to do flips, etc. But because we knew that you would be filming in a really small room, that part of him disappeared. But you brought other things out in T-Roll. So tell me a little bit about him.
I would have done the flips if we'd had more space, obviously. No, T-Roll's like one of those gifts in terms of, it's a very open brief. It's like, he's a half troll, half elf, go. And so we had a lot of fun with trying to find that kind of energy. I sort of pictured, we had the sketches, but I sort of pictured him being quite cheeky, quite always trying to get his voice heard in a crowd. That's T-Roll. And then you learn more from the song and how he's kind of got this fairy tale sized chip on his shoulder. He's had this terrible experience as the kind of ugly duckling of the troll world, if that makes sense. It does make sense to us, I suppose.
Your song, Can't Judge a Book by Its Cover, is, I tell this to Brian all the time, I love that song. It is the ballad of the show. Tell me about bringing that song to life.
Well, I mean, first of all, it was an absolute pleasure, and it's an amazing song, Brian. It was challenging in a way. I mean, it's a similar story to a lot of people. I ended up in my parents' wardrobe. Towards the end of the song, there's a whole section where Brian just kind of went, this is an outline, but kind of go for it. Try some riffs, try some embellishments towards the end of it. And what I love about it is he starts the song in a very different place to where he finishes. He starts very, very insular and very honest, and he ends up completely pouring his heart out. And by the end of it, we're in sort of redemption and a place of strength, and you've got the choir and everything. So trying to find that arc, and also just trying to sing the heck out of it.
You did.
Looking down, I see a beauty that transcends. Not an ugly duckling, I have always been misread. I'm a regal swan instead. I always knew I was somebody who has so much to give, but never got the chance. But when they shamed me, they made me. Now I know who I really am.
Let's move along now to Princess Euphony. Charlie, you were, this character was quite a minor character, and you turned it into quite a major character. Tell me about Princess Euphony?
So yeah, I played Princess Euphony, and she's just the epitome of a brat. That's pretty much the only way you can describe her. She's been given everything she wants her whole entire life. Her parents obviously at her beck and call. I got the call from Brian, who he mentioned earlier. I've known him since, I think I must have been about 11 or 12. And so he's definitely seen me have those moments where I've been a bit stroppy, just a bit like needy to my parents. He said, you know, it's going to be a really great part, and, you know, you get to do this and you get to do that. And bear in mind, I've done quite a lot of singing work with Brian since I was about 15. It was when he went, oh, one tiny thing. And I said, what's that? And he went, you've got to be really bad at singing, like really, really bad at singing. And I found it quite funny because since I'd known Brian, it had been like, come on, do it better, do it better. And then this time it was worse, like every single time. But yeah, I mean, it was great. Despite her being a painful character, it was painless to play.
How do you sing badly?
It's so hard. I found it really difficult. Just being so offbeat, off key, everything wrong, basically. But yeah, it was really difficult.
Get ready to have your minds blown.
Beauty, 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 beauty. My daddy bought me a rose. Big help when I strike a pose.
Well, you did a great job sounding terrible. So way to go. Fantastic. Speaking of sounding really terrible, Jonty did a great version of Warble. Tell us about your version of who Warble is.
Well, Warble is a giant. He shifts between his main focus being wanting to eat people and wanting to sing songs about eating people. And we're not quite sure which one is the prevalent thing from one moment to the next, really. And that was the beauty of Warble. He was just a little bit of comedic chaos injected in there, I suppose.
And I guess you also walk that delicate balance between having to be really scary because you're a giant and that's your character, but not too scary so you don't scare the kids.
Yeah, I think balancing the scariness with moments of comedy, so the kids, you know, if they're scared, that they can also laugh at Warble. Sorry, they can also laugh at Warble, and you know, find him funny as well as scary.
Jack sold the cow for beans. They grew taller than the trees. Then the giant said, "Feed Oh, I smell lunch."
One of the most surprisingly wonderful parts of this show are the visuals. And I want to talk to a couple of the individuals who turned these great performances into a great show. And first I want to talk to Peter. You brought one of the elements that has really became the signature look, which is the white line around all those characters. Can you talk a little bit about how you brought that aesthetic to the show?
Yes, thank you. I'd met Brian and he discussed this whole idea of doing the fairy tales. And it was about a book coming to life and how you would keep it going. And I thought visually, how could you make that so you related the work with the book? And I remember there used to be theatre where you used to have little cutout characters and you could push them along and they were on blocks and you could move them about. And they always had a white outline around them. And I thought, wouldn't this be great to take the live action, put a white line around it, add that in to the animated backgrounds and add the animation on top. I was suggesting this before I was involved, remember? So I thought this was a very easy process. I said, that'll be no problem for the guys you're getting to do all this, and left Brian to go ahead and do that. And then a few months later, he rang me up and said, Pete, you know, you said you would like to be involved with this, so perhaps you'd like to do it now. And again, I went, that'll be fine, Brian, I'm sure. So my son, who sat here very quietly, was the man who did all the hard work. I said to him, Freddie's a videographer in his own right. I said to him, I've got this great idea, Fred. This will be really easy to do. I am actually very famous in business for going.
He does this a lot.
Really easy.
He does this a lot where he says, "Oh yeah, this will be super easy," and it's like,
no.
No.
This is 5 minutes worth of work. 3 months later,
Yeah.
when Freddie's losing his eyesight, basically, and going, how could we do this? But it worked, and it's really wonderful. And I've got to take my hat off to all you guys, because you did all the hard work with an iPhone, and it was great. So I take my hats off to you, because you did a great job.
Part of the reason why it has such a unique vibe is because of Charlotte. Charlotte came up with all the props and the costumes and really gave Out of the Books that unique look and made the show really pop. Can you talk a little bit about making two-dimensional costumes, really?
I think when initially my dad said, would you like to do the costumes for this? I'm thinking I need everyone's measurements. I'm going to be making, like, I need to find materials. Like, I wanted to, especially like for the fairy, I was like so ready to like make some amazing costume. But then it's like budget, timeline, posting, like this, like just general access to anything was just difficult. And my dad was always like, I need it by like the next day. It was always like, you've got 2 days.
Well, you were in the position of having to solve many problems for us on a very small budget. And part of the problem that you had to solve were props. So you came up with such inventive ways of bringing these props to life. Can you talk about that?
I don't know if like the white outline thing, that must have come first. And so I thought, let's play into that even more and flatten everyone by giving them these like 2D like paper props that look like they come straight out of the books. Oh my God, I just said it. And the fairy wings were like the hardest to make. And I literally had to take coat hangers out of like my mom's wardrobe and like bend them to support like these massive paper wings. And then I sent them and they had to be assembled like there. We had to do like a Zoom call just to get them all like assembled and everything. But like it was really fun. But again, it was just about being like, I'm also really not an illustrator, but like I was trying to imagine that I was an illustrator for these props. Like if I was drawing a picture, but then I just made them big enough. Yeah, it was just like a really simple idea, and it was just literally paper.
And now we come to the last person who I call the boss. This is Sarah, who is the producer of the show. Sarah, tell me, of all the things that Brian and the team were working on, because you had sort of an eye on everything going on, what do you think was the most challenging part of the process?
Well, first of all, I just want to say something about Brian and the whole project. It really has been a passion project for him. And I think that I can't tell you how truly thrilled he is by the result of this, of all the work of all of you, of the acting, the singing, the dealing with the difficult circumstances, having to redo things, the panics, the not panics, the time calls in the middle of the night. I think it's been an extraordinarily wonderful learning curve, probably for all of us, for him, for me. Certainly watching it with all our family was here in LA when this happened, and everybody was put to work because what else were we going to do? We were in a lockdown. I mean, yes, Charlotte says she's not an illustrator. She's very modest, but, so she gets on doing that. Ellie is like, oh, yes, you can also be the producer. You're not doing anything else apart from your history essays or whatever you're doing at university. I just wanted to kind of restate, maybe it's very obvious to everybody, but I think that it has been for Brian an incredible experience and a culmination of many years of thinking about what this project might be.
What do you see the future of Out of the Books is?
I think it always was intended to be something for TV, like, an episodic television series of some description. But there's always been a sort of multi-pronged vision for it. And I personally am a huge fan of it being a musical theatre performance. It was driven by the songs. It came from the idea. That was the birth of this whole project. And I think what this prequel has done is set the scene, and it has launched the band Outta The Books.
Well, I personally would love to see it on stage with everybody who is here with us today. I want to thank you all for spending your time with us here on Zoom, obviously the only place where we ever meet. I want to thank you all for incredible performances and incredible talent to bring the show to life in such a surprising way. And I want to thank Brian for your vision, your leadership, your creativity, and bringing all of us together to be a part of Outta The Books.
Yeah, it's been amazing. You guys have just taken what I started 5 years ago and turned it into something that I never could have imagined. You know, we've launched it. We've got this band. You know, we can do concerts. I'm so excited about it.
We were characters in fairy tales, but no one knew our names.
We played our parts as extras, while others got the fame. Every day the same old story.
Witches!
Wolves!
No smiles.
No fun. No music.
So I put them in a band.
Nothing grand.
Understand?
Clean stages. In our pages.
Singing fairy tale songs.
And everyone will sing along. Librarian has taught us to think outside the books. So she sent us to your 3D world
to see how real life looks. And now that we are here, we bring those stories from our pages. Where witches fly.
And wolves say hi. And princes are courageous. With magic wands and evil spells and fairy dust replete. We'll sing you just the story songs of fairy tales you need. We are Outta The Books. We turn straw to gold
and frogs to men.
We're Outta The Books.
Lose our favorite shoe
and get it back again. In fairy tales we thrive.
We come from 2D lives.
We sing stories.
We bring magic.
Life outside of books is tragic. Story songs for you.